LIBRA, observe how the universe punishes those who hurt you. Have you ever spent hours imagining the day that person would feel the same way you did? There's a part of LIBRA that no one taught you to recognize. It's not waiting for justice. It's waiting for permission to rest. And while that scene doesn't unfold exactly as your mind imagined, a part of you remains trapped on the exact day you were hurt. In this video, you'll discover what this waiting truly protects within you and the moment when it can stop controlling your peace. There's an old-fashioned neighborhood pharmacy scale with a cold metal plate that can register a 1-gram difference between two things that seemed identical. You never needed a scale like that. You are one. Since childhood, before you understood that it had a name, you already sensed when something weighed more than it should in a conversation, in a silence, in a small injustice that no one else noticed. And for years, you kept that as a silent gift. The tranquil certainty that sooner or later the plate would balance itself, that whoever hurt you would feel somehow the weight of what they did. But nobody told you something about this internal balance you've carried forever. It doesn't stop thinking when the person leaves. It continues to register day after day, every gram of what remained unanswered. And what seemed like patience began, at some point you couldn't even pinpoint, to turn into something else. A waiting, a silent waiting for a scene that may never happen. The person realizing what they did, feeling what you felt, paying the price for it in some visible way. LIBRA is known as the sign of balance, harmony, and gentle justice. But nobody talks about what happens when that justice doesn't come. About what your mind does with all that accumulated weight on your plate, with no one on the other side to balance it. You start doing the work alone. You reconstruct the scene hundreds of times. You find the perfect phrase you should have said. You imagine the person's face when they finally understand the magnitude of what they caused. And each time you do this, some part of you believes for a second that you are closer to a just outcome. But this outcome never comes the way you imagined. And here's the first uncomfortable thing that needs to be said. Maybe you're not expecting justice. Maybe you're expecting permission. Permission to stop feeling what you feel without having to admit that the person will never give back what they took from you. There's a pattern in LIBRA that almost no one names, because from the outside, it just seems like maturity, class, an elegant way of dealing with pain. You don't shout, you don't expose it, you don't make a scene. You keep the hurt in an organized, almost catalogued place, waiting for the right moment, the right proof, the confirmation that what you felt really had the weight you gave it. And while you wait for that outside confirmation, a part of you remains trapped inside that exact moment when you were hurt. Frozen there, along with the scale, waiting for a plate that may never receive any weight from the other side. There's a recurring scene in the life of almost every LIBRA who harbors an old resentment, the fantasy of reunion, that imagined moment when the person reappears, somehow diminished by life, and finally understands what they did. Sometimes this fantasy comes as a success you achieved and they didn't. Sometimes it comes as a regret they express, too late. You don't choose to have this fantasy. It simply appears in the quietest moments of the day, as if it were the only way to close something that was left open. And there's a question that almost no LIBRA allows themselves to ask aloud, because it seems that admitting it is giving up their own dignity. What if this scale you've always carried was never built to weigh the other person? What if, all along, the empty plate on the other side wasn't about them giving something back, but about you finally putting down the weight you should never have carried alone without anyone ever having it? Asked to carry it alone? That question stayed with me for a long time without a clear answer, just a discomfort that wouldn't go away. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac. Sign to a Life of Purpose isn't about punishing those who hurt you or waiting for the universe to do justice for you. It's about something more difficult and more liberating, how a Libra learns to put their own plate down without feeling guilty about it, without thinking they're giving up their own dignity. It's a mental attitude, not a magic promise, a way of recognizing that the balance you so desperately seek for others is also rightfully yours, even when no one else reciprocates. If you've gotten this far feeling the weight of that scale I mentioned, perhaps it's because a part of you has known for a long time that waiting for the other person's reaction is handing them control over when you'll finally get to rest. And that, for someone with the sensitivity of a Libra, hurts in a way that few understand from the outside. It's not about forgetting what happened, it's about stopping letting that calculation control your days now, while the discomfort is still here, alive, showing you exactly where you need attention. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, is there someone you're still silently waiting to feel the weight of what they've done? There's a detail about Libra that's rarely honestly stated. Their education, their gentleness, their soft way of handling conflict isn't just personality. Often, it's armor, a refined way of maintaining a safe distance from anything that threatens to throw their inner self off balance. When someone hurts you, the first reaction isn't usually to yell, demand explanations, or confront them immediately. It's to organize, to store it away in a polite, almost invisible compartment, and continue the conversation as if nothing has changed. From the outside, it seems like maturity. Inside, it's something else entirely. A careful postponement of their own pain, packaged in good manners. Think about the scale again. A good technician never throws a weight abruptly onto the plate. They place it carefully, slowly, so as not to distort the reading. You do exactly that with your own pain. You place it slowly, carefully, almost silently, so that no one notices the real size of what is being weighed inside. And it works for a while. The people around you think you got over it quickly, that it didn't affect you that much. Only you know that the plate continues to descend, silently, a little more each day. And this postponement has a price that no one warns you about. Every time you hold on to resentment without processing it, it doesn't disappear. It just shifts location, almost physically, to a deeper space, where it continues to weigh you down, even without appearing on the polite surface you show to the world. Over time, this space becomes full, and a full space, sooner or later, overflows somewhere you didn't choose, at a time you least expected. There's a common scene that illustrates this well. A family dinner, or a get-together with friends right after a recent heartbreak. You arrive, smile, join in the jokes, ask about other people's lives with genuine interest. No one looking from the outside would guess that hours earlier you cried alone in your car, replaying the same scene for the 10th time. This ability to keep the surface spotless while the bottom is in turmoil is neither weakness nor cynical pretense. It's a lifetime of practice. But practice has its limits, and the body, even when the mind insists on maintaining appearances, always finds a way to collect its due later, in a fatigue that has no logical explanation, in a sudden desire to disappear from the world for a few days. There's a moment, almost always after a great hurt, when Libra does something that confuses even those closest to them. They forgive too quickly to be genuine. And the reason isn't pure generosity. Often it's fear of the discomfort of remaining in an open conflict, without an elegant solution, without a clean ending. So you offer forgiveness that you haven't fully felt yet, just to get it off the table, just to restore the apparent peace you so desperately need to breathe. It's like forcibly zeroing a scale by pushing the pointer back to the center with your hand, instead of waiting for the actual weight to come off the plate. The number on the display shows 0 again, but anyone who understands precision instruments knows This isn't balance, it's just a forced zero, which will become distorted again the first time someone touches the table lightly. But forgiveness born from fear of discomfort doesn't close anything. It only pushes the pain under the rug, where it remains silent, waiting for the next opportunity to reappear disguised as something else. Sudden jealousy, sadness without apparent reason, disproportionate anger in a minor situation, months later, with no relation whatsoever to the original cause. And when that happens, you wonder where so much intensity came from for such a small detail, without realizing that it's not about the detail. It's about everything that was pushed down, waiting for any opening to rise to the surface again. You've probably experienced this, saying, "It's okay, it's over," in a calm voice, looking the person in the eye, genuinely believing at that moment that it was true. And 2 months later, on a random Saturday, feeling a strange urge to cry while watching a movie that had nothing to do with that story. The mind quickly forgets the words it said. The body doesn't. The body continues with the open account, waiting for someone, someday, to truly resolve what was only superficially resolved. This type of hasty forgiveness, which is actually an escape disguised as peace, is exactly the kind of pattern that the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose helps to dismantle. Because true forgiveness, at the right time, without haste and without pretense, is a skill that is built, not a talent that Libra is born knowing how to use, even if it seems natural. The book addresses exactly this difference between appearing to be at peace and being at peace. The last copies are selling out quickly because this content may be removed at any time. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Here's a distinction that changes everything when you stop to examine it closely. Justice and revenge, disguised as justice, don't weigh the same, even if they seem identical from afar. True justice doesn't need your presence to happen. It's impersonal. It follows its own course with or without you observing, without needing an audience, without needing applause. Revenge, disguised as justice, on the other hand, demands an audience. It demands that you be there, watching, savoring that moment when the person finally understands. And it's precisely this demand for presence that betrays what's really at stake. Notice how your mind constructs the scene. You're almost always present in it, observing closely, almost savoring the other person's expression when they finally understand the magnitude of what they have done. If justice were truly about impersonal balance, your presence there would be irrelevant. The fact that it is indispensable in the fantasy already reveals that the desire is not to see the world correct itself. It is to see, with your own eyes, proof that you were right to suffer in that way. If you need to be there to feel it was fair, maybe what you want isn't balance. It's relief, a relief that only exists in fantasy. Because in real life, almost no one shows up apologizing the way your mind scripted it, with the right intensity, at the right time, in a way that would make sense for the pain you carried alone for so long. And while that script doesn't unfold exactly as you wrote it, a part of you remains paused, waiting for a scene that may never be filmed. There's a simple test to find out which of the two you're really feeling. Ask yourself if you would be at peace knowing, just knowing, without ever witnessing, that the other person's life followed a naturally difficult course, without any direct relation to what they did. If the answer is yes, it's justice you seek. If the answer comes with a refusal, a no, I needed to see, then what's at stake is something else, more human, more understandable, but also more dangerous to nurture for years on end. And here lies perhaps the hardest part to admit. While you wait for that scene, the one in control of your peace is not you. It's the person who hurt you, because as long as your rest depends on their reaction, their regret, their downfall, you have unknowingly given them the exact control of what you most desire, peace. They don't even need to know this to exercise that power. All you have to do is keep waiting. Imagine a scale that only an outsider can balance. Until that person appears to adjust the scale, the number remains there, trembling, unable to rest. It's a strange position for someone who values their own autonomy so much, to depend entirely on someone else's gesture for inner relief. And the longer time passes without that gesture, the more Libra becomes convinced that all that's needed is a little more patience, a little more waiting time, as if the problem were the duration and not the very mechanism of depending on someone who's already gone. This is the mirror that few Librans allow themselves to face head-on. The scale you swear exists to balance the world, in reality often exists to keep you close to those who have already left. While it weighs on you, you are still connected. You are still, in some twisted way, with that person, through the resentment you refuse to let go of. And perhaps it is precisely this connection, and not justice itself, that a part of you, secretly, doesn't want to lose. That's why so many people with this pattern keep checking from afar on the life of the person who hurt them. A profile, a casual mention from a mutual acquaintance, an indirect news item, not out of mere curiosity, out of an almost automatic need to update the score, to know if the plate has moved a little. And each check, even if it seems harmless, is another thread that ties you to a story that otherwise would have unraveled on its own over time. It was thinking precisely about this kind of silent trap that the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose was written for signs like yours, to give you back the control that, without realizing it, you surrendered to those who don't even think about it anymore. Inner beauty for Libra isn't about appearing peaceful to others, it's about truly regaining control of your own tranquility. This material is available for a limited time and may be removed without notice. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. There's a moment, hard to date, when all of this starts to change. It's not a dramatic decision made all at once. It's more like that moment when you finally let go of a weight you've been holding for so long that your arms had forgotten what it felt like to be light. You realize you can put the plate down without it meaning the person won, without it meaning what they did no longer matters. It just means you've stopped accepting the job of judging, sentencing, and collecting punishment alone, every day, without help, without rest, without anyone taking turns with you. It's not indifference. It's the opposite. It's recognizing that the burden you carried was never just one. It was the weight of what happened, plus the extra weight of trying to manage the consequences of someone else's actions alone. A calculation that was never yours to make. Returning that second burden doesn't erase the first. It only puts back in its rightful place what should never have left it in the first place. Justice, if it ever comes, will come on its own, far from your vigilance, without needing you as a witness or overseer. And if it never comes the way you imagined, life goes on exactly the same way, free for you to move on to, with the burden that was yours, and without the burden that never was. It's strange how relief, when it finally arrives, doesn't feel like victory. It feels like silence, a clean silence, with no one else inside it but you. This turning point rarely comes like a bolt of lightning. It arrives more like an ordinary morning, when you realize, almost unintentionally, that you haven't thought about that person in days. And, curiously, this doesn't bring guilt. It brings a quiet, almost shy relief, as if a part of you is ashamed to admit that you were okay without having received anything in return for what you lost. This moment of letting go of burdens without abandoning your own story is the core of the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose. It's not about pretending nothing happened. It's about Libra relearning to distinguish what is yours to carry from what never was. It's about finally seeking a balance that doesn't depend on anyone else appearing, explaining themselves, or paying for anything. Access to this content is limited and may end at any time. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. In the end, perhaps the balance was never about the other person. Perhaps it was about you learning with time and life to place what you carry in its proper place. Libra wasn't born to judge the world. It was born to remind us that beauty is possible even when things don't add up the way we expected. There is something profoundly dignified in those who manage, even gradually, to let go of what weighs them down without losing their own gentleness along the way. It's not about ceasing to feel. It's about stopping transforming each hurt into an endless process of calculation, revision, and judgment. It's about trusting that life, with all its invisible gears, knows how to follow its course even without your constant supervision. And when you finally allow the plate to rest empty, without demanding that someone else refill it, something old within you calms down. Not because everything has been resolved, but because you have finally stopped carrying alone what was never solely yours to carry. This perhaps is the quietest and truest form of balance that exists.